It's July 5th, 2022. I'm Todd Dunn. Today I'm aboard my 1972 Allied Princess 36 Sequester. And this is one of my videos in my Buying an Old Fiberglass Sailboat series. And today I'd like to talk about surveys. Now, I said that plural for a reason, and that is I believe that when you're buying an older boat, that you really need two surveys. One of them you do yourself, and the other you have done by a professional surveyor that you hire. And we'll get to that one in a second. First, I'm going to talk about the survey you do yourself. Why do your own survey? Well, you want to do your own survey for a couple of reasons. One is so that you have a much better idea of the condition of the boat before you make an offer. And two, if you look through everything on the boat yourself, you may find something that disqualifies the boat as far as you're concerned. And you won't go to an offer and paying for a professional survey to be done. So you're going to potentially save yourself a good deal of money on a boat that you can disqualify based on something that you can observe. So what do? You're not a surveyor. What do you do when you're going to do your own survey? Well, what I did was I got a couple books from the library on marine surveys, and I read them. I looked for what do surveyors look for, how do they look for it, and what's important. You're also going to want to research the particular type of boat that you're buying and find out everything you can about that boat. For example, if you were interested in buying this boat, if it was for sale, you would want to research Allied Princess sailboats. And you can find quite a bit of information about them online. Of course, a lot of that information is going to be in my videos, but just a little plug I had to put in there. But you will find quite a bit of information about any kind of boat that you're buying online. Just remember, when you're looking at an old fiberglass sailboat, 40, 50, maybe even 60 years old, the information online is probably going to be skewed to what the boat was like when it was new. And there may have been significant changes made to the boat since then. I know this one has had a lot of changes relative to when it was new. And knowing what sort of engine it had when it was built, that doesn't really tell you much when you get in here and look, and it's a completely different engine. But that does tell you the boat was repowered. Anyway, what you want to do is find out what you can about the boat, learn about its construction, and think about potential problems related with that type of construction. And then you want to make up basically a spreadsheet that covers all of the important systems on the boat, what to look for in each one, and then when you come to the boat, you want to go through the boat systematically. Now, when I look at a sailboat, the first thing I look at is the hull. Now, if the boat's in the water, that's complicated quite a bit, but you can at least look at the topsides part of the hull and look at its overall condition. If it's gel coat, is it reasonably shiny? Are there stress cracks, etc.? And if it's paint, you can look at the condition of the finish. So you want to look at the hull, you want to look at the deck, you want to look for signs of delamination, leaks, etc., damage, stress cracks, impact cracks, just all those things. But you want to go through the boat systematically. And I would plan on spending 3 or 4 hours looking the boat over. Now, the only difficulty that you're likely to run into doing this is your broker. Broker's probably going to want to be with you. Broker is not necessarily going to want to spend 3 to 4 hours standing around while you look at the boat. Now, when I was looking to buy this boat, I ran into a problem with a broker because of that. I came to a boat, I had my list, I think it was 12 pages long, for every part of the boat, every system on the boat that I wanted to check out, and I started doing it. And the broker kept interrupting me, saying, "Oh, have you seen this? Have you seen that?" I finally told the broker, "Look, I'm here today. This is my third look at this boat. I want to go through this list. I don't want to be bothered with interruptions while I'm doing it. And so just let me do this and we'll get it over with. And if you don't let me do it, I'm leaving." Well, 15 minutes later, the broker was back, tap, tap on my shoulder. "Oh, have you seen this?" I took my offer check that I had prepared already because I knew how much I wanted to offer on the boat, out, showed it to him, tore it up, and left. You have to be prepared to do something like that. Make sure the broker knows you're serious about the boat, and this self-survey is a big part of making an offer on the boat. But you want to go through everything on a boat. You want to look at the engine, you want to look at the rig, you want to look at steering, you want to look at the electrical system, and you want to not just flip switches and see if things work. You want to have a look behind that electrical panel and see if it's a rat's nest of wires or if it's well organized and the wires are new, or at least new looking. So you can, look in all, once you get below, look at all of the cabinets, everywhere. Cabinets underneath the settees, behind cushions. Open every cabinet, look in it, check it out, look for signs of leaks. Just check everything out. Open up the battery box, have a look at the batteries. Are they in good shape? Take your screwdriver out. If they're flooded lead acid batteries, pop open the caps on a battery. Shine your flashlight in. See if you can see the tops of the cells, of the plates. If you can, it's not a good sign for that battery. Check everything. Turn the switches on. Fire up every system on the boat. Make sure they work. Basically I would go through the boat, bow to stern or stern to bow, but checking everything I can get to. Remember that you can't do anything destructive. You can open things up, you can turn things on, you can check things to make sure they work, and you can look at the general condition of the boat. If the boat has varnish inside, is it in good condition, etc. And specifically, you can, in your mind, have things that are deal killers. And you can look to see if those things exist, if they're a problem. And that, if you run into a deal killer an hour into your self-survey, you're done. You can leave. That boat is no longer on your list. Anyway, once you've gone through the boat and made your own self-survey, and you want to make sure you write all of your observations down, take lots of pictures, and you are now ready to go to an offer if the boat passed your self-survey. And we'll talk about the offer in a separate video. So now that you're ready to go to an offer, you go in to the broker, you make your offer for whatever it is, and the broker contacts the seller, and the seller either says, "Nah, I'm not taking that. That's not enough money," and maybe makes a counter offer, maybe doesn't. In either case, if they do that, it bounces back to you. At that point, you have to decide if you want to offer more money or not. You may or may not want to do that. But the seller may also say, "Okay, yes, I'll accept that offer." At which point, you give the broker a deposit, usually 10% of the asking price, which coincidentally is the broker's commission. The broker will put the check in his escrow account, and you will then proceed to the professional survey. One thing that I definitely want to recommend is when you go to professional survey, go online, look up the surveyors in your area. there are a couple of professional surveyors organizations, and they have listings of surveyors by area, and you can find one that is an active member of one of the professional survey organizations, and contact surveyors and find somebody who's willing to do it on your time frame. Often surveyors are booked up and they say, yeah, I can do that in 3 months. Well, that's not really going to work for a purchase survey after you've made an offer and maybe have a month to close. So you find a surveyor and yourself. One thing you don't want to do is accept the surveyor that the broker recommends, and they will all recommend a surveyor. Say, oh yeah, I know the surveyors here, this guy is good. Well, don't accept that, because remember, the broker works for the seller, not for you. So you want to find your own surveyor and have that surveyor look the boat over. It's a good idea, if you can, to be there and observe the survey to see just how thorough the surveyor is. So why do you want to have the boat professionally surveyed? Well, there are a number of reasons, not the least of which is it may impact financing. If you're financing the boat, probably will, and it will certainly impact whether or not you can get insurance. On an older sailboat, you're going to run into issues getting the boat insured. A lot of insurers won't touch a boat older than 30 years. That means now in 2022, if you're looking at a boat built before 1992, a lot of insurers aren't even willing to talk to you about coverage. The ones that will talk to you are going to want a current survey done for you, and not one done by the owner 6 months ago. So they're going to want a current survey, and they're going to want to look at the valuation on the survey, and that's going to be a big factor in determining whether or not they will insure the boat and whether or not they will cover it for the amount of money you want them to cover it for. And when you're looking at insurance, we'll talk about this in more detail in another video, you want to look for what's called an agreed value policy. But as I said, I'll go into that a little more detail in another video. So now we have hired a surveyor. The surveyor comes in and goes over the boat, and ideally the surveyor is going to check everything that you checked, and the surveyor has two things most likely that you don't have. One, they may have some equipment you don't have, like a moisture meter. Moisture meters, are not super expensive, but they do take a little time. They do cost money, and they do take a little time to understand how to use them effectively. And you may not want to buy a moisture meter, and it may, not be a good investment, because once you buy the boat, you're probably just going to put it someplace and not use it again. Now, and the other thing the surveyor has is lots of experience looking at sailboats, looking for potential issues. And if you're a relative newcomer to boating, you don't have that experience. You don't know what to look for necessarily, unless, of course, you watched my videos on buying an old fiberglass sailboat. But in general, surveyor is going to know more about what to look for and may be familiar with the particular type of boat you're having him survey, and that may help a lot in that they know what to look for on that particular build of boat. And the surveyor is going to provide you with two things. One, that survey, which you can show to the bank if you're going to if you're trying to finance the boat, and a survey that you can give a copy of to the insurance company so that you can get insurance on the boat. And the other thing the survey does, just as important as the first two, is if the surveyor finds something that's a significant problem, may not be a deal breaker to you right off, but it wasn't mentioned in the listing, the broker never mentioned it, you can use that to get a lower price on the boat. Because when you make that offer, you will always make it subject to acceptable survey. And pretty much every survey is going to find some flaws on the boat. And you can usually use those flaws to renegotiate the price, to basically cancel your initial offer and make a new lower offer that includes the cost to make necessary repairs to the boat. And so that's one of the more valuable aspects of a survey. When I bought this boat, the surveyor picked up enough things that I was able to get the price reduced by more than I paid the surveyor. So, and that's not unusual. So that's one of the big pluses of the survey. Also, you've just looked the boat over yourself. You feel like you have a really good idea of what you're looking at. Well, the surveyor has different eyes than you do, different experience, and is going to give you an independent review of the boat that is not affected by any bias that you may have of, wow, I really like this boat. This is the boat sort of feeling that may impact how you look at it. Surveyor has no skin in the game and is just going to look the boat over and identify potential issues. So surveys are a good thing. They're not cheap. A typical survey for an old fiberglass sailboat is going to run in the neighborhood of $20 a foot of the overall length of the boat. So this boat, 36 feet, probably cost about $720 to have a pre-purchase survey. That's very different from an insurance survey. You want to make sure that the surveyor knows that you want a pre-purchase survey. And so you get the boat surveyed and you're ready to go to close on your offer or renegotiate your offer or walk away if the surveyor found something that just is a deal killer. But as I mentioned, that self-survey you do before you make the offer ideally should identify any real deal killers. And the idea of the self-survey is, of course, to familiarize yourself with the boat, but also to identify potential deal killers so you don't have to go to a professional survey and pay out that $600, $700, $800 to the surveyor and then walk away from the deal. So that is, it's there to, your personal survey is there to save you money, to identify in that perfect boat that looks so great a deal killer problem that you just didn't see when you looked at it initially. Okay, so I hope that tells you a little bit about surveys and will hopefully give you a better picture for just what is involved in hiring a surveyor and the benefits and reasons for having a professional survey done. I should say that one issue potentially is the overall value of the boat. If you're buying a $10,000 boat, you may not want to spend 7 to 10% of the cost of the boat on a survey. And it may be, you may be willing to take a chance on the boat without the survey. And that value boat, if it's small enough, say 26 feet or less, you may, if you own a home, be able to insure just by getting a rider on your homeowner's insurance without any kind of survey. So that's a possibility and a time when you might not feel a survey is necessary. But on any bigger boat, I think that a survey is a necessity and you definitely want to get it done. And you need to have that money in your boat buying budget. hopefully you'll recover the survey cost if the surveyor finds something that you can use to renegotiate the price. But you never know. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't, I'd like to ask that you consider subscribing to my channel. And thanks for watching.